All right, let's dive into this. We're talking Indonesia today.
Indonesia, yeah.
Which, for folks who haven't had the chance to visit yet, it's pretty mind-blowing when you start to look into it.
It's huge.
It really is. It's the world's largest archipelago.
17,000 islands.
Over 17,000 islands. Just try to get your head around that for a second.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to grasp the sheer scale of it. And then you start thinking about all the different types of experiences that must be out there across all those islands. And it's like, whoa, sensory overload.
Yeah. And that's where we come in. We've sifted through a ton of material, travel blogs, articles, documentaries, all that good stuff to really understand what makes Indonesia tick as a travel destination.
Exactly. And what we're aiming for today is to give you a shortcut. Right. So you don't have to spend hours digging through all that information yourself.
Right.
We'll pull out the really essential insights, the need to knows. So you can get a feel for why Indonesia is so compelling, why it keeps drawing people in.
And hopefully inspire you to maybe take a trip there yourself someday.
All right. So first things first, what is it about Indonesia that makes it so special? Why should someone even consider going there?
Well, from everything we've seen, one of the biggest draws is this incredible combination of natural beauty and cultural heritage.
Yeah, it's not just one or the other. It's like they work together to create something truly unique.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. When we say natural beauty, what are we talking about specifically?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, obviously, are those picture-perfect beaches, like the kind of beaches you see on postcards, white sand, turquoise water, palm trees swaying in the breeze.
Paradise vibes for sure.
But it goes way beyond that. Indonesia has active volcanoes, like seriously dramatic landscapes shaped by these powerful forces of nature.
Okay, yeah, I've seen some photos. That's pretty wild.
Then there's the wildlife. The biodiversity in Indonesia is just off the charts. You've got orangutans swinging through the rainforest, Komodo dragons, which are, like something out of a fantasy novel. It's a nature lover's dream come true.
And it's not just the big ticket animals, right? It's like this whole web of life that's incredibly rich and diverse.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got the natural beauty part down. What about the cultural heritage?
So one of the things that our sources really highlight is the sheer number of UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Indonesia.
Which tells you something right there, right?
Yeah.
These aren't just any old historical places.
Exactly. These are sites that are recognized globally for their cultural and historical significance.
They offer a glimpse into the archipelago's past, the different empires and kingdoms that have risen and fallen, the stories that have shaped the Indonesia we see today.
And what's fascinating is that, you often find these culturally significant sites nestled within these stunning natural landscapes.
Like the temples surrounded by rice paddies or perched on cliff tops overlooking the ocean.
Exactly. And that creates a really unique atmosphere, a sense of harmony between human history and the natural world.
And let's not forget about the people, right? Every source we looked at emphasized the warmth and hospitality of the Indonesian people.
Yeah, it seems like that's consistently cited as a highlight of the travel experience.
People feeling welcomed, feeling like they're genuinely connecting with the local culture.
And when you combine that with the fact that Indonesia is generally considered a fairly affordable destination, especially compared to some other parts of Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And the food, oh my gosh, the food, the variety, the flavors, the spices, it's all incredibly tempting, right?
It paints a pretty compelling picture.
It does.
Okay, so we've got a good sense of why Indonesia is such a draw. Now let's talk logistics for a bit. When's the best time to actually go?
Well, Indonesia has two main seasons. A dry season and a wet season.
Okay, classic tropical climate.
Exactly. The dry season typically runs from April to October, and the wet season is from November to March.
All right, so break it down for us. What's the deal with the dry season?
Well, as you might imagine, the dry season is when you get the most sunshine, the least rain. The skies are clear, the waters are calm. It's ideal for, those classic beach vacations.
It makes sense.
And it's also prime time for diving and snorkeling because the visibility is at its best.
Okay, so you're basically guaranteed those picture-perfect postcard scenes.
Pretty much. But, and this is something to keep in mind, the dry season is also peak tourist season.
Right, so bigger crowds, potentially higher prices for flights and accommodations.
Exactly.
Classic supply and demand.
Yep. So if you're someone who really values peace and quiet, or you're traveling on a tight budget, you might want to consider the wet season instead.
Okay, interesting. So what's the upside to traveling during the rainy season?
Well, for one thing, there are definitely fewer crowds. You can experience those same incredible landscapes, but with a much more tranquil atmosphere.
I can see the appeal in that.
And the rain often comes in short, intense bursts rather than like all-day downpours.
So you can still get plenty of sunshine in between.
Right. Plus, the landscape is super lush and green during the wet season. It's like everything comes alive.
Okay, so it really depends on what you're prioritizing.
Exactly. Do you want guaranteed sunshine and those classic postcard views, even if it means sharing them with more people?
Or are you okay with a bit of rain in exchange for a more intimate, less crowded experience?
And potentially some better deals on flights and hotels.
There you go.
Oh.
No right or wrong answer, just different ways to experience the same amazing destination.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get specific now. We've got this huge archipelago, thousands of islands to choose from. Where should we even begin?
Well, I think the natural starting point is Bali.
The Island of Gods.
Yeah, it's the island that seems to be on everyone's radar. And for good reason.
Okay, so what's the hype about? What makes Bali so special?
Well, first of all, it has those incredible beaches we were talking about earlier, like world-class beaches. But it's also got this vibrant nightlife scene, so if you're looking to party, Bali's got you covered.
Okay, so beach vibes by day, party vibes by night.
Pretty much. But then there's also this really strong spiritual element to Bali. Like, a lot of people go there for retreats, yoga, meditation, that kind of thing.
It's interesting, right? This blend of like relaxation and spirituality alongside like partying and adventure.
Yeah, it's a unique mix, and our sources really highlight some specific experiences that you can have in Bali, like exploring the rice terraces around Ubud, which is like the quintessential Bali image.
Those iconic terraced hillsides.
Exactly. And then you've got the luxury resorts in Seminyak if you're looking for a more pampered experience.
Okay, yeah, I've seen photos of those. Infinity pools overlooking the ocean, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And then for the adventurous types, the diving off Nusa Penida is supposed to be absolutely spectacular.
Okay, so you've got a bit of everything in Bali.
You really do. And we can't talk about Bali without mentioning the temples.
Right, the temples are a huge part of the culture there.
Yeah. And specifically, our sources mention Tanah Lot and Uluwatu. These temples are known for their incredible sunset views.
Like those iconic shots of a temple silhouetted against a fiery sky.
Exactly. It's more than just a religious site. It's a visual spectacle that's deeply intertwined with Balinese culture.
All right, so we've got Bali, the Island of Gods. From there, let's jump over to Jakarta, the capital city.
Jakarta, yeah, it's described as a bustling capital.
Which is a pretty stark contrast to the laid-back vibes of Bali.
It is. Jakarta is a true metropolis, a melting pot of cultures, a place where history and modernity collide.
It sounds like a completely different experience.
It is. And the sources highlight a couple of key attractions in Jakarta. One is the National Monument, which is like the iconic symbol of Indonesian independence.
Okay, yeah, I've seen pictures of that towering obelisk.
Right. And then there's Kota Tua, the Old Town, which is a fascinating glimpse into Jakarta's colonial past. You can see the Dutch influences in the architecture and the street layout.
It sounds like a history buff's dream.
It is. And then on the flip side, you've got these high-end shopping malls, luxury hotels, world-class restaurants.
Jakarta's got it all, huh?
It really does. It's got that big city energy, that sense of constant motion and possibility.
Okay, so from the bustling capital, let's shift gears again and head to Yogyakarta, or Jogja, as it's often called.
Jogja, yeah. The heart of Javanese culture.
Which immediately piques my interest. Tell me more about that.
Well, the first things that are mentioned are Borobudur and Prambanan, these ancient temples that are just absolutely magnificent.
Temples again. Indonesia seems to have a lot of those.
It does. But these are particularly special. Borobudur is a Buddhist temple and Prambanan is Hindu. They're both incredibly intricate, incredibly grand in scale.
Like testaments to the artistry and architectural skills of the people who built them.
Exactly. But Yogyakarta's cultural heart goes beyond these grand monuments. It's also a hub for traditional Javanese arts and crafts.
Okay, like what kind of arts and crafts?
Well, things like batik, which is a traditional textile dyeing technique.
Yeah.
And wayang kulit, which is shatter spittery.
Ooh, shadow puppetry. That sounds cool.
It is. And then, of course, there's the food. Yogyakarta is famous for its street food.
Okay, so we've got culture, history, amazing food. What else does Yogyakarta have to offer?
Well, it's also a great base for exploring the surrounding countryside, which is dotted with villages and rice paddies.
Sounds like a nice contrast to the hustle and bustle of Jakarta.
It is.
All right, so we've got beaches, temples, big cities, cultural hubs. What else is on the Indonesian menu?
Well, how about some dragons?
Dragons. Like real dragons.
Well, sort of. We're talking about Komodo Island.
The home of the dragons.
Exactly. This is the only place in the world where you can see Komodo dragons in the wild.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. Tell me more about these dragons.
They're the world's largest lizards. They can grow up to 10 feet long.
Whoa, 10 feet. That's huge.
They're pretty intimidating creatures.
I bet. So what's it like to actually see them in the wild?
Well, you have to go with a guide for safety reasons. But it's an incredible experience.
I can imagine.
But it's not just about the dragons. The waters around Komodo Island are also incredible for diving and snorkeling.
Okay, so it's like a 2-for-1 adventure.
Exactly.
All right, so we've got dragons and diving. What's next?
Well, if you're looking for those picture-perfect beaches, but maybe with a slightly more laid-back vibe than Bali, then Lombok is a great option.
Lombok, the quieter alternative to Bali.
Exactly. Lombok has stunning beaches, waterfalls, it's got it all. Plus, you can hike up Mount Rinjani, which is an active volcano.
Okay, so maybe not so laid back if you're climbing a volcano.
Well, that's for the adventurous types.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for pure relaxation, then the Gili Islands just off the coast of Lombok are supposed to be incredible.
Gili Islands?
Yeah, they're like little slices of paradise, perfect for snorkeling, diving, and just chilling out on the beach.
Okay, so Bali, Lombok, Gili Islands. That's a pretty solid itinerary right there.
It is. But we're not done yet.
Oh, there's more.
There's always more.
Okay, hit me with it.
All right, if you're a serious diver, then Raja Ampat is a must-see.
Raja Ampat, a diver's paradise.
It's considered to have some of the richest marine biodiversity in the world.
Like, what does that mean in practical terms?
It means you're going to see a mind-blowing variety of fish, coral, all kinds of marine life.
Okay, I'm starting to understand the paradise part.
The water is crystal clear, and the reefs are just teeming with life. It's a truly unforgettable experience.
All right, so Raja Ampat for the divers. What about for the landlubbers?
Well, if you're interested in seeing orangutans in the wild, then Borneo is the place to go.
Borneo, wild adventures in orangutans.
Exactly. The rainforests of Borneo are a crucial habitat for these incredible creatures.
And are they easy to spot?
Well, the best way to see them is to go on a guided trek or a river cruise in Tanjung Puding National Park.
Okay, so you're really getting deep into the rainforest.
You are. But it's an incredible experience. You're surrounded by this lush, dense jungle, and you might even get lucky and see other wildlife like proboscis monkeys or clouded leopards.
That sounds amazing.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Any final stops on our whirlwind tour of Indonesia?
Well, there's one more place I wanted to mention. It's called Bandung.
Bandung.
Yeah, it's known as the Paris of Java.
The Paris of Java. Okay, now I'm really curious.
Well, Bandung got that nickname because it's got a cooler climate than other parts of Java. So during the Dutch colonial era, it was a popular retreat for Europeans.
Ah, so that explains the Parisian connection.
Exactly. And you can still see that European influence in the architecture. There are lots of beautiful colonial era buildings.
Okay, so it's got history, it's got a cool climate. What else does Bandung have going for it?
Well, it's surrounded by tea plantations, so the scenery is really beautiful.
Okay, so it's like a little slice of Europe in the heart of Indonesia.
Pretty much.
All right, so we've got a pretty solid understanding of the why and the where of visiting Indonesia. But what about the how?
Oh.
What are some practical things we should know before we go?
Well, the first thing is visas. Many nationalities can get a visa on arrival, but it's always best to check the latest requirements before you travel.
Yeah, don't want to get caught out at the airport.
Exactly. And then in terms of money, the local currency is the Indonesian rupiah, or IDR.
Got it. What about getting around?
Well, you've got taxis, which are pretty affordable, and motorbike rentals are popular, especially if you're exploring the islands.
Okay, but motorbikes can be a bit risky, right?
They can be, so it's important to be careful. And if you're not comfortable driving yourself, there are ride-hailing apps like Gojek and Grab, which are super convenient.
Okay, good to know. Anything else we should be aware of?
Yeah, it's really important to be respectful of local customs, especially when you're visiting temples or other religious sites.
Right, like dressing modestly, being quiet and respectful.
Exactly.
Okay, and one last thing. We've got to talk about the food.
Oh, the food.
The sources we looked at mentioned some classic Indonesian dishes like nasi goreng, satay, and rendang.
Those are just the tip of the iceberg. Indonesian cuisine is so diverse, so flavorful.
Yeah, there's something for everyone.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on one more thing. Our source material mentioned FlightNHotels.com.
Oh, yeah, that's a really useful website for anyone planning a trip to Indonesia.
So what's it all about?
Basically, it's a one-stop shop for booking flights and hotels, and they often have really good deals.
Okay, so it could save you some money.
It could, and it's super easy to use. You can compare prices from different airlines and hotels, see reviews, all in one place.
So if you're feeling overwhelmed by the planning process, this could be a good resource.
Definitely.
All right, so to sum it all up, Indonesia sounds like a truly incredible destination. We've talked about its natural beauty, its rich cultural heritage, all the amazing places you can visit.
From the beaches of Bali to the dragons of Komodo Island, the temples of Yogyakarta to the rainforests of Borneo.
It's a country that really seems to have something for everyone.
It does.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I guess the question is, what kind of Indonesian adventure are you dreaming of?
What calls to you? The spiritual tranquility, the cultural immersion, the thrill of exploring the unknown.
It's a big country with a lot to offer. So take some time, do a little more research, and start planning that trip.
Indonesia awaits.
Indonesia awaits.